Do you have a CIO in your organization? If you don't, no problem. We're going to talk about that. The whys, how do you address it? Do you need one? In today's AI-fueled chapter that we're in with business and the continuing automation, there's an argument, do you even need a CIO? But here we are. Here's the landscape. You don't have one. Let's talk about the options and if you truly do need one. All right, so of the different reasons that organizations don't have a CIO or equivalent position at, in the IT space, you mentioned cost. Is that, now there's other factors too, right? But are we thinking that that is a number one driver?
You know what, Tony? I think we talked about this almost a year ago, I think. I think that many companies fail to recognize that somehow accidentally they got themselves in the IT business. They think they're in distribution or they think they're in manufacturing or whatever, but they got one or two help desk people and they got a network person and they got somebody else and they got servers and they might have, a couple of plants located across either the US or the globe. You're running an IT organization. It might be a small IT organization, but you're in the IT business. But you're treating it kind of like this side thing that somehow gets lumped under accounting.
That is a key thing. Thinking that.
Am I being honest, though? That's what it is, right?
You are, and I chuckle because that gets me fired up on this channel. But no, it's very well
said. It should
said.
be under sales. We all understand IT should roll up under sales. And that's just
incorrect. But isn't it typical that IT's just been growing out of control, and typically it gets pawned off to the COO or CFO, and that they don't even get invited to the strategy meetings, typically, right? Which is a problem. Because the tech roadmap should be aligned with the business strategy, and it's historically been after the fact. We need to get this done: a new website, a new ERP system, a new whatever, and IT just has to execute without having input that can change priorities and timelines, correct?
100%, Greg. 100%.
Well, and Tom, you were at Microsoft Ignite in person in Chicago. You got to see the holy, the top god at Microsoft on stage, and he would do these demonstrations. And in past episodes, you mentioned the concept of lean and what it did for manufacturing. And we're sort of in a moment again with AI and Copilot and what it will do for businesses. So when you think about value and ROI and what this type of technology can do for organizations, we're in the must-have territory, not nice to have.
Oh, no question. I mean, so first, there's all kinds of different types of business leaders, and you can think what you want, but I think Satya Nadella is one of the most decent human beings that I've ever run across as a senior leader, right? So they are all in. He is really excited. I mean, there is a vision. It isn't sort of a disconnected concept. And if you look at what Microsoft did, and it took them about, Craig, when was Project Green? 20 years ago?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Okay. So, Microsoft, you could laugh, you can say whatever you want, but finance and operations and Business Central is Project Green. So just get over it, right? They ended up with 2 instead of 5, and they thought they were going to have 1. And, so you look at what they said Project Green was, took them a little longer, right? This AI stuff, it's everywhere. You start looking in your Outlook, you look in your Word documents, you look in your PowerPoints. If you're not using this stuff, you're missing the boat. I'm telling you, I'm starting to use it, but Satya was clear when he's like, we see this as doing for the front office knowledge workers what lean did in manufacturing.
We've rehashed some common themes on this channel, but they're important because I think context is important for this topic. So there's an element of every business being in IT. So now that's established, and I think everybody from the owners and CEOs down would nod their heads and agree. But here we are. So do they still need a CIO? I think there's one more. Let's just cover one more stereotype. I want us to progress here, but there's still one more stereotype. And we see it all the time with our clients, is that IT folks in general will come in and they'll throw out these acronyms or just not speak the business language. So I think that's a barrier. But does it hit home with this topic? Companies, let's just establish that they're of size and they're flush with cash and all the things. I want to take it off the table, but they don't have that CIO level. Why? Do we have a business language problem here?
IT has kind of been growing up over the last 10 years. I mean, I was the IT help desk, then I was IT manager, and now I'm IT director. And then they give them a title, and they're missing all the other skills. They haven't had the soft skill career map along with the technical map, so they don't have that business. I'm not talking about everyone, because there's certainly a lot of them out there, but you gotta build both career maps now, because IT is culture, IT is business, and IT is tech, right? I mean, it's and people, right? So, and managing and leading and all that stuff goes along with it. So, Tony, I think when you're talking, it's like the medium-sized businesses, they can really use a CIO. They typically don't have it in a budget, but it could cover blind spots and build up their internal IT team and really build out that application layer versus just keeping things patched up. And I think that's a big mindset shift for business owners. We need IT at the leadership strategy meetings to help us adjust priorities. And I think, and they need to be pouring back into the IT teams because of the cultural impact. I think there's a big black hole that people are not even looking at, of how big IT can impact culture now.
Craig, I think here's a typical example. So yesterday, we're located here in the Midwest. I went and saw a really great family-owned, let's say, well plus $100 million distributor, right? And the family business, great people. I mean, just the culture and the values and how they treat their team. I mean, just a shining example of a well-run American family business. And they're headed to, say, $500-600 million in the next 5-6 years. But the person who was running IT until recently was like a brother, a cousin, not really a leader, pretty okay AS400 RPG guy. But he had just alienated everybody, never talked to end users, all the things, right? Because he didn't have that senior leadership and training. And now they have brought in somebody who's, they don't call him a CIO yet, but he is on that path you just described, and he's actually pretty well established. It's just about title with him. But you got to raise the profile. I hate to say profile because it's meatier than that, right, Craig? He should be at the table supporting the business strategy
and helping change priorities, right? I mean, that's a big thing. And if you look at, what we do, even if there's an IT director and we do get them to the strategy meetings, which I think they should be, and I'll stop beating that drum. I won't stop beating that drum ever. But covering the blind spots, like when we come in, we say, "Oh, yep, it's right." Or did you think about this product? Did you think about this strategy? You really, to have a single point person running IT direction can be risky too.
It is. No, it's a great point. And I think that, so let's talk about options. So I think we've established a problem statement and good examples of folks that are starting to punch through. But for the vast majority of companies and business owners that are still scratching their head, and there's an appetite there, but what's the approach? The good news is there's options. So no CIO, no problem. And so let's get into some of these options. And we'll start with the fractional space. That, of course, that's our business model. And I'm not making an infomercial here, but because the fractional space, I've seen this crop up even in the CFO. In fact, one of our clients has a fractional, I think 2 of our clients have a fractional CFO. There's a fractional CMO space, and it's just a way, if I go back to IT, for companies that lack a CIO, a fractional company gives you an opportunity to have IT represent at the table. You bring strategy, you bring vision, but you don't bring, I'm going to call it perceived cost risk, because I mean, we're there, right? We're there on the importance of it, but they'll get the benefits of it at a fraction of the cost.
Well, I think, Tony, you're spot on, right? They're in that evolution, and I think it remains to be seen. I can't remember which one of you guys asked the question, do you even need a CIO in 5 or 6 years? But let's just say that for today, you need a CIO, but not every day.
Right.
The CIO, there's the example. The CIO, you need somebody to post the cash receipts every day. You need somebody to do AP whenever you run it, but you don't need a CFO every day. Well, CIO should be the same thing. We're talking about strategy and direction and guidance. And yeah.
Well, one of the companies that we work with today, I mean, the COO and the owner posed the question. So as a fractional CIO or part-time CIO, however you want to word it, at what point do we become big enough where we need a full-time CIO? It turned into a really good thought exercise. And so I posed the question back to the COO. So how many orders did you pick last week? Like, well, we ship out 100 orders. No. How many orders did you pick last week? Well, none. About routing deliveries and chasing down UPS issues. You see where I'm going with that. I said, this role is no different. The CIO, the fractional CIO is no different. You are in essence a part-time operations person as COO. You're setting strategy, you're setting vision, but you've built a strong team underneath you to execute. Think about this in the same way. You're not 24/7. You're not 40-hour a week strategy and vision. And, you're focused on your team, you're building, you're leading the charge. You need to think about it this way. It's not all about keeping lights on in the server rooms and making sure folks' internet is working.
And, and to compound on that, with the AI revolution we're in right now, the interpretation of what should be applied in these companies is huge, right? I mean, that's business strategy, tech strategy, but what are we going to automate? What are we going to optimize? How are we going to use AI? We're at another hard turning point.
And I love the blind spot coverage you said, Craig, because back to the fractional model, again, it can be marketing, finance, IT. You tend to bring a team of expertise, outside independent eyes that are more in tune to what the market is offering in general, versus that siloed, I just know what's in my bubble. It's counsel, it's that vision, it's that sanity check. Blind spot coverage, back to that. I think there's so many benefits, and you're doing it at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, and it's not to. It is to poke holes into strategy, because you're supposed to poke holes in it, but just open up their eyes to what other options there are. Because so many times you're in your four walls, and you're only seeing what you know. And we got to keep growing. And I keep saying this, especially in this tech space we're in, especially with this AI revolution. You need teams in tech, and you need high level teams. And for the mid-sized companies, they don't need a full-time one. They just need to make sure they're on the right road, going the right direction, because it costs a lot of time and money to go off track and then get back on track. And that's a big deal.
Well, and if they decide it's not all or nothing, right, Craig? If let's say they've got a bright person on the team and they think they do want a full-time CIO at some point, but they'd like to see this person grow into that role. Well, I mean, that's part of what a fractional CIO does too, right? We help people mature into sitting in that seat.
Yep. Well, and any IT director or any IT manager that's on a CIO track, which I think would be great for companies to invest in, should have the dual career tracks, right? Should be the tech knowledge and the business and culture knowledge tracks. They need to be both those at the same time.
Yeah, to me that is the hallmark of a well-performing fractional organization, and that is the mentorship side of things. Brian Lurie, a former guest on our show and a mentor of mine, I've quoted him many times. He likes to say it. We're in the people business. We just happen to do IT. So that dual track is important. I feel like when IT folks are applying for positions, the technical is just assumed. Like it's table stakes. But how are you with white space and meetings? How are you with reading the room? If I have a specific topic to review with a coworker in IT department, with a head of marketing and the board of directors, you can bet your ass there's 3 different approaches. And how good are you? And can you pivot? Like those are the soft skills and the people side that are more important than the tech part of the role.
And can you make a legit business case and carry a business conversation for why or why not across all the myriad places that technology is going to touch the business, right? You need to be able to just have a non-emotional, we're here to support the business strategy. Here's what we say we're trying to do, and this is what we believe you should do, and this is why. With a P&L behind it that supports the why.
Yeah, Tony, you said pivot, which sparked a thought in my mind. If you're not, you got to look at future cost of ownership of your systems. You got to look at how agile you are and how fast you can adopt new technologies. We've been talking about what Moore's Law now. It used to be 2 years. Now it's 3.4 months. Being able to roll out new tech and not get stuck is huge. And the future cost of ownership is a real profitability in a company, right? And Tom, you say it all the time. Once you get your system to the cloud, you're doing oil changes, not engine changes, right? And that be agile and pivot if you need to.
And I'm actually a little bit surprised, but there's a fair number of companies out there that have truly custom systems still today. And they're right now today facing a do we build or do we buy decision. And they need some strategic thought. They need guidance around that. That they need somebody who's seen something outside their 4 walls, as you say, Craig.
Even companies industry I came from was part of a multi-billion dollar portfolio, and had a very good class of senior IT leaders, folks that are at the table, that can speak business, and there was still outside IT counsel, call it. And it's back to themes that we've already touched upon, covering your blind spots. What's the industry tell us? Are we on the right track? That outside counsel, that outside independent set of eyes, it's healthy. A client of mine who asked, so when do we graduate to a full-time CIO? There is an answer there somewhere, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact of the importance of blind spot coverage and having that outside counsel and assistance and strategic thinking. Because I don't think that ever goes away.
Well, I think the other value proposition, and Satya at Ignite mentioned this, it used to be, we'd hire all our own staff, our own CIO, they would build out their own team, or we'd have, a partner or 2. And he was talking about this best of breed all-star team. And you think about, some of the fractional people that we know, certainly how we run our business, we do have a great network, right? You need an MSP, we got 3 top shelf MSPs, right? You're not a loser in a bunch. You need an ERP partner, we got one of those. You need some telecom, we got that. Right? So do you need to have those skill sets on staff? No, I don't think so.
Well, Tony, I agree with you, Tom. And Tony, on your point, when will it ever go away? And I don't feel it should, because everybody should be part of a peer group. Everybody should be part of a peer group, have a coach, and have a mentor, right? I mean, even if you're the CEO, all the successful ones have coaches mentors, and peer group. They're part of some peer group, right? And that helps them keep growing because when, we say it, you're either growing or dying. And even if you have arrived, it's not done.
And you spurred another thought. So I mentioned the multi-billion-dollar organization that I came from. At the corporate level, they don't have a full-time CIO. They have an IT director, but the CIO is outside. It's, fractional. And I always pose the question, why haven't you hired this individual or bring him in? You know what part of the answer was? I need someone who's not afraid to give me the truth. I need someone with outside eyes that's not afraid to challenge the status quo. Because now that might sound insulting to IT leaders in the position that this answer is referring to, but there's this inherent, this subtle, that's your boss, that's the owner. And while, yes, good leaders help challenge the status quo and poke holes, there's still a little something there because that's the signature on your check, right? So there's an X factor there. That's what they were focused on, is like, we will always have an independent set of eyes and someone who can challenge us without any fear whatsoever.
Yeah, that independent side is so big. And, the fact that you give, we do it all the time. You're not right, Mr. CEO. You need to think about this. The shift from cost center to strategic asset, this is where tech can really help out a lot and uncover the blind spots in the CEO. And look, we're having conversations with owners, CEO, and boards now, just to make sure they understand where and why we need to go this way.
Well, and we just ran into it the other day. Tony, you and I are in a call. We're having a, what do we call it? Compassionate candor, right? Check out our values. This is what we call it, compassionate candor. I thought I was being very compassionately candid because I actually personally inside my head wanted to be much more firm than I was. And, the person I'm interacting with, Tony comes back and he's like, hey, this guy says only one strong personality in a room. I'm like, well, I don't know. Is that how you run executive meetings?
Yeah.
Right.
You want healthy conflict, healthy tension. You want people
trying to debate, right? We're trying to debate the best method to accomplish a task here. Yeah. Right. And so
I think that's part of the shift that we're in, because take IT out of it and you have your traditional C-suite leaders in the room having a bristly conversation. I think it's a little different. It's back to the transformation that we're going through as IT leaders. Like, what do you mean you don't like what I'm saying? Who the f*** are you? Like that's the kind of thing that we're going through.
Right.
Versus if the head of sales has that conversation with the owner be like, all right, here we go again. Look, let's just pivot. And, it's just, you see where I'm going? Like it's different. Well, yeah.
And think about it, Tony, because I love the where the f*** are you, because the fact is what he really wanted to say, and we say this all the time, when a customer brings us on, we're wearing their jersey. And I can tell you, we're in the middle of this conversation and I can see in this guy's eyes, he's like, you don't even work here.
Since you're new here, I'm going to cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Yeah. That's part of it. That is part of it. And that's, and that's on the company. It's on us to have those reminders. Like, look,
it's a transformation for everybody, for all companies. We share stories, fill in the blank. You notice we didn't use anybody's name. Why? Because if you recognize yourself in that story, I promise you there's 6 more.
Oh,
you think it's you, it's not just you. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and Tony, look at the conversation I had yesterday with that IT director. I said, how do you know what priorities to work on? He's like, they just show up every week. I said, well, that's not a way to live, because you can't get any momentum that way, right? It's the CEO's idea of the week. And I'm like, you aren't running like EOS, or you don't know what the quarterly rocks are, so you don't know what winning looks like. And it says no. And I'm like, huh, So, I mean, we got to know what winning looks like and have a scorecard and understand priorities so that otherwise we're just going to be shifting and jumping around and be fire mode. And that's not strategy at all, right? That's just that execution's going, I don't know where, right?
Back to the mentorship piece, because in examples like that, you have companies that desire or wish to have someone internally rise up. So I do think, back to our theme, no CIO, no problem, there's options, right? There's a fractional space that kind of fills that void, and you're not jumping in the deep end of the pool with this in terms of outside cost and comp, even though I think we know that ROI is evident, but that's a thing. But in parallel to that, it's helping to mentor up the team. Today's idea for some business owners is 180 the next day. It's how you handle that.
And think about that scenario. The CEO, they are innovative. They're always pushing the envelope and hot topicing things. Our job is to make sure they're structured. Okay, that's in bucket 2. We're working on bucket 1. Bring calm to their thinking, but let them stay in that innovative mode. But don't let their innovation derail, distract, and change priority, because you just lose all kinds of momentum.
It's an art form, man. I mean, that's back to that mentorship and guidance. All right, so now let's talk about 5 years, 6 years now, that crystal ball. Let's have a thought exercise. With AI and the advances that are coming, will companies even need a designated IT leader in the near future?
Absolutely. Somebody's got to be coordinating these automations, teaching IT, just say an IT manager. You got to teach the IT managers how to manage automation now. They used to just manage how to make things stay on. Now these routines, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be maintenance to some of those automations, but you got to manage to make sure they stay on track and don't break over time also, and there's always the whole BPO or CI or lean, whatever you want to call it, the continuous improvement that actually can stick versus paper-based. It's automation, SOPs, right? And now we're in a true CI, which is just, we'll build more profit or drop more profit to the bottom line.
And so, Tom, I think you're going to have a dissenting opinion, but let me give one more, because and Craig, we were kind of more on the tech side here, but because there is a business element to this too, right? But if I compound on the tech side, I've seen AI write code, and like in Business Central, because we're intimately involved in the Microsoft space, asking Copilot to write an extension. Hey, I need blah blah blah, and it bangs out the code. Now, at some point, you do have to understand what's happening under the hood. You do have to understand how this system will continue to grow and expand. You can't give 100% to automation. There's still a human element that I don't see going away ever, but I don't know. But Tom, when back to my comment on dissenting opinion, like I've heard you mention before that, companies might not need a CIO in the future.
I just think it's unclear, right? So, the first part of your question, for the next 5 years, I think for the next 5 years, it's actually critical, right? Like you need to understand how you can leverage AI in your business. This isn't maybe AI works in your business, folks. AI, if you're not using AI, your cost structure is going to be out of whack in just a few years, because people are going to be smoking your butt, delivering better service for less money in a method that your customer prefers. That won't happen. Now, what happens beyond that? You might need one senior person that you bring in, kind of like your EOS coach, Craig, right? Like you're not going to need these folks on staff anymore. You're not. You're probably going to have a network service company that you pay a fee to, and you're going to have somebody like us or somebody that you bring in to coach you or participate quarterly or a once a month check-in to check strategy, right?
Yeah, because there's thousands of tools out there. So I do think, so I think where maybe we're landing is, are you necessarily going to need someone full-time in the future? I mean, that, again, thought exercise. There's two sides of that camp. Yes, you will, or maybe you just need the fractional, because someone still has to help orchestrate the gobs of automation out there and what should or shouldn't and how the chain of events occur. I mean, there's still real strategy conversations. Just because I can automate this process, that statement alone, sure, we all collectively agree. But how do you go about it? What's the right tool? Gentlemen, thanks for a great conversation. It speaks to all the options that exist today. There is a path for you. Just know that there will always need to be senior level, business-minded, IT-focused representation at the table. That's too important. But how you approach it, many different options. Thanks again. Until next time.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. I'm telling you. And I think that those will be fun, right? So the idea, right, kick us off. Why don't you give us the intro, wind us up?
All right, I'll give it a shot. Or was I too negative on that, guys?
That's perfect.
Oh, I liked it. Yep.
Yeah, because if you're a business owner, you're probably yeah. I don't need one. All right, go ahead.
Well, I think you're trying to sort it out, right?
All right, gentlemen, thanks for a great exercise. Gentlemen, thanks for a great discussion as always. So just remember, do you need a CIO? Just remember, no CIO, no problem. There's several options that you can go to.
That stroke is really getting to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Did we lose him?
It's still recording him if he is talking, because it records locally. But right now he's,
we should take a print screen of that and have that be the caption.
yeah.